So it's really important for us to like slow down and be present. Try not to think about. You've just tuned into Rebel Wellness Podcast, your resource for realigning and revitalizing your health and well-being. I'm your host, Kaylee, also known as Coach Kales. I'm a holistic health educator, certified nutritionist, and fitness professional of nearly a decade. I'm stoked to have you with us. You just joined a community of amazing souls who are ready to break free from the confines of the often outdated and confusing health advice all around us. Living in a world overwhelmed by quick fix diets and unrealistic beauty and body standards, us rebels stand for change. If you're like me, you're exhausted with the confusion and polarization plaguing the social media health scene. My mission is to empower you to step beyond today's diet culture, adopt a holistic health approach paired with the foundations of science for lasting, well-rounded wellness. Through teaching you how to tune in and embrace your mind, body, and soul, we'll reject one-size-fits-all solutions, realigning you on a better path that honors your unique needs and values. With new episodes weekly, this podcast is your sanctuary for deep wellness exploration, featuring expert advice, real-life stories, and a true commitment to your growth. Your journey to better health and simplicity in life begins now. Let's jump right in. Hello. Welcome back to Rebel Wellness. I am enjoying this kind of shift into autumn, like I was kind of describing last episode. If you didn't catch it, I have been really just kind of into the existence of slowing down lately, as you guys know. Well, I guess it wasn't technically last episode. It was a soft girl season, why I am shifting into my soft girl season. And I am kind of continuing that conversation a little bit because I wanted to share with you guys my own personal favorite exercise mode that I personally like to return to every single time that I go through that experience of disconnecting from my body, getting really external, hyperfixating on everything going around me. And you know how like when you're just going, and you're doing too much and you're focusing on other people all the time, you totally forget to take care of yourself and you forget to reconnect, both spiritually and just physically, And so for me, I was thinking back on my walk with my dog this morning about ways that I have always come back to myself over the years, even though, I talked a lot in that episode 87, about how I, kind of not let go of myself, but let go of taking care of myself for the last maybe 10 years or more perhaps. But it's kind of important for me to note that there were many times that kind of instinctually I would have these kind of seasons where I'd realize that it feels good to kind of enjoy my body, enjoy my mind, journal more, take a little bit more time to do hobbies I enjoy, So today I kind of just felt like sharing with you guys my personal favorite way that I get back into my body whenever I feel super disconnected or I just need to realign in general. So I hope that today's conversation is helpful for you to maybe explore it for yourself, or maybe it's exactly the same thing that you've experienced and you didn't really think about how it kind of helps you realign with yourself, and that hopefully you can maybe start getting back into it as well. But before we talk about that, I want to invite you to come join our community on Instagram at Rebel Wellness Podcast. At Kaylee Loren is my other page, and you can come join our wellness newsletter. It's the one time a month wellness newsletter that is on coachkales.com, as well as a ton of amazing freebies, downloads, PDFs, all the good stuff that you can get from me are going to be found there. And I also have, guys, a lot of great resources on there that I've put together, like my top recommendations for fitness things, nutrition things, and just nice gadgets for wellness everything on an Amazon link page that I have on my website as well. And a lot of times people will ask me, like, what is your recommendation for weightlifting gloves? What is your recommendation for B complex supplements? What is your recommendation for reverse osmosis water machines? Even all the way to those things. I have them linked on my Amazon link on my coachkales.com, and it'll redirect you to Amazon. It's that whole kind of Amazon affiliate thing. However, it is the actual stuff that I have used myself or I have my clients use if like I don't need it, but they need it kind of thing. And they have good reviews for it. So I don't like to link random junk, and I'm not just linking stuff that has high price points just for kickback. It's not about that. I have it there for you so that it's a great resource to kind of, if you were to ask me, you can go check. And I also actually have on the top of that page a bunch of unique discount codes for any other companies that I really respect and use. And so that is going to be found on that same page if you're interested in saving some money on some tried and true companies, whether it's hormone balancing, water filters, things like that, protein shakes, yada, yada. All right, so let's dive into this episode. So my podcast editor is going to love this because she recently also got yoga teacher certified. But my absolute favorite exercise to get back into my body is yoga. And there's a large variety of types of yoga. There's Hatha, there's Yin, there's Vinyasa, there's heated that can combine a lot of different of the styles of practice, and there's a whole lot more. Those are the most common ones you're going to see here, especially in the US. And, the first exposure I had to yoga that was significant was in college because my major required me to take like 3 or 4 specific physical activity classes that I needed to complete. And at the school I was at, we actually had a teacher who was amazing, and she was well known for just being not only a fantastic teacher, but also just like a really great class to go to. And since all the classes for physical activity were only 1 credit, at the time, 1 credit was $35, which is so cheap to pay $35 for 3 months of yoga 2 times a week. You're not going to get it any cheaper than that. Like taking yoga classes at junior colleges is such a life hack if you find a good teacher. I don't think it's that cheap for units anymore, but it's going to be way cheaper than a month-to-month yoga membership. You're just going to be on campus with a bunch of students. But if you don't mind that, and you can check it out and find it. But anyways, I took that yoga class 2 years in a row. Yeah, 2 years in a row because I loved it so much. It was specifically Hatha yoga, but the way that Hatha involves a lot of strength because you hold poses for longer. It's not quite the same as like Yin is more restorative and you're holding stretches for very long, quite a long time. Hatha is kind of an in-between, I would say, to Vinyasa and Yin. There's a lot of other types again, but those are the kind that you typically see here in the US. So if you had to kind of make a mental note of what is similar, Hatha would be kind of a combination of the two. There's a lot of stretching and restorative sort of involved, but there's a lot of like warrior poses, like all of the warrior poses are involved. It's a lot of static strength. And I never realized how awesome it is to kind of challenge your body through the calisthenics that yoga is. And yoga for me became a really amazing way to just focus on my body, be really present, like being where your feet are mentally and physically is such an interesting experience when we live in a time, in a world, in a culture that just like pushes us in the future or we're existing in the past. A lot of times people just think about all the mistakes they made or all the wish they could have done or the ways people hurt them. And you're just reminiscing on all of those things constantly, or you're just focusing on like, I need to get here, I need to get here, I need to get here, like future focusing constantly. And so it's really important for us to like slow down and be present. Try not to think about your to-do list or what you're going to eat later, and that's really hard for me. And so that's where yoga is amazing, is because I'll never forget that teacher kind of when we were doing Shavasana, which is where you lay at the end in just stillness on the ground, which laying on hard floor on a mat is really good for your body. It sounds probably horrible, but it's actually one of the best ways, especially for like our upper neck thing, because we all are like craning forward, staring at our computers and cell phones. It's a really great way to try to like naturally let that area of your cervical spine kind of reset and realign. But it's also one of those reasons that like a lot of times when people throw out their back, they say lay on your back on the floor, you can elevate your feet or whatever feels right for you. But stiff, firm ground is beneficial for kind of alignment, and we get misaligned all day long. And if you have a really squishy bed or you're sitting on the squishy couch, especially if you're somebody who like works remotely and you're not sitting at an actual good desk with an ergonomic chair all day, you're spending hours in these weird bendy positions, yoga can be amazingly powerful for helping move those joints around, get them into different planes of motion that we don't normally do. There's just so much I wanted to say about that yoga class and stuff. What the teacher had said was when you're laying in Shavasana, which is the stillness, is that you should not be letting your thoughts just kind of take over your mind during that time. You kind of want to think of nothing. You can also think of like hyperfixate on the way your breath is moving out of your nose, on the little hairs on your upper lip. You kind of want to think about every thought that's coming into your mind and then just let it pass. Try to just like send it back off. Don't sit on it and think about it for much longer than a few seconds. And it can help you like still your mind, calm your mind. And that's one of those things that I love in yoga in general, aside from even just the physical challenge, but the way that yoga just helps you remember that existing is your birthright, it to some extent, and I'm going to get a little philosophical-ish in this conversation, but I do just want to acknowledge the fact that, it's an ancient practice for a lot of reasons. And I'm not going to go into, like usually like Kales loves to do the little background history and then the science, I'm going to talk a tiny bit about the science and such, but today I mostly just want to share with you my personal experience with yoga and how it helps me and is helping me currently in this soft girl season, and how it's been helping me, every time in my life when I've been able to prioritize it, just have a better balance. And it definitely comes into being forced to be present, being forced to feel things physically, and being forced to breathe specifically. A really great exercise for you to do if you are a desk worker or something is try to sign up for a breath work class or a yoga class that involves a lot more breath work. So yin has a lot of breathing. You do have to breathe quite a bit in Vinyasa, but some of those classes can be more beneficial if you're somebody who breathes shallow all day long for work or, whatnot, because we need solids amounts of oxygen and we store a lot of emotions in our body that can be released through breath, which is, why we sigh when we're, relaxed, or maybe when we're frustrated and we're trying to have this natural reaction to trying to relax ourselves. Sighing can be extremely powerful. And so can like box breathing, where you breathe in for a certain amount of seconds, hold for a certain amount of seconds, breathe out for a certain amount of seconds, all that stuff is actually immensely powerful, especially for trying to be present in your body. And I've even known some people who have gone to breathwork retreats, and all the breath work they're doing, an insane amount of emotions can come out. Like some people start to shake, some people just burst into tears, some people laugh really hard, and it's fascinating because I think, especially again, like as time has gone on and the way our culture is, we've really disconnected from ourselves as just divine beings in general. And yoga is one of the most like natural, easy ways to kind of touch base there again and try to connect. And so the way that I've been using yoga for myself is not only for the connection to self and, aligning the energy in my body through movement, but it's also been really important for me to have that ritual and to show up for myself and make space for myself at least one time a week. So I'd say for probably the last year, I've done a really good job getting back to my weekly weekend yoga. Sometimes I'll mix it into the weekdays. It kind of depends on when my husband's like working or not. But lately, actually, I've stopped doing that because that's a really interesting thing that I think a lot of us females tend to do is we make our schedules and our life around everybody in our life, but dominantly our husband, if you have a husband or a partner in general. And, it's kind of not good because then you start to just wayside everything that's important to you for somebody else. And then, they turn around and they're like, I'm going to go out with my guys. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to take an overtime or whatever. And you're like, oh, okay. So like you don't prioritize the time that we have together the same way as I do. And that's not necessarily like a bad thing. And it's not necessarily like they don't care about you. It's just that like, I think a lot of males especially are just used to everything bending and breaking around their existence. And like, not to be like weird or anything about it, but like it just kind of like when you observe how we operate standardly as a culture, it tends to still err that way. And so, and holding boundaries around that and how we exercise that or communicate that is up to us, especially once we see it. So I've talked about this with like several of my best friends and like a good amount of my clients. And for myself personally, I have decided like one of the ways that I can get myself out of those habits and like all the caretaking constantly and all of that is when I have my yoga class, it doesn't matter if he's home for the weekend for once or something, like that 1 hour is for me. I'm going to go take that hour. Maybe it's 2 hours because of driving over there and back. But at the same time, that's okay. Like I deserve those hours to myself and it's something that does something for me. And that's what matters. You need to prioritize that space and that time for yourself when you're constantly giving to everybody else majority of the time. Right. And that's the whole energy of this soft girl season that I'm personally going through. And yoga is one of those things that I'm utilizing as my best way to get that space for myself, to do the things that feels the best in my body. And there's days where I totally wake up and I'm like, ugh, I really don't feel like driving over there and worrying about if I'm going to get a spot that I like with my mat, all those little things. And then ultimately, like, I think I've only late canceled the day of like once because I was super under rested for, I don't remember why. But ultimately, I've just made that commitment to myself that I'm going to show up to my yoga class. And I have to book them ahead of time. That's how the studio I go to works. And that helps me put it in my calendar. I'm not missing things. It just is going to work out because I'm carving out the space to do that. And in the big picture, it's only 1 hour out of my week. And I can totally commit to that, right? So that's where I find yoga to be extremely beneficial is that like it's a place where you go and you show up, you get probably a good little sweat in, especially if you go to a heated class, or you get some good time to just breathe and exist in your body, to stretch out. I don't know about you, but I'm that kind of person that needs to be forced to stretch. I know a majority of my clients, they have to be forced to stretch. And that's the downside to me not like having a studio or being in a studio anymore is I can't go like be like, and you're going to go over there after our session's done and do these stretches where they have to do it because I'm like there watching them. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that is no longer a thing. But I will say that for myself, I need to also be kind of told to stretch because like my husband and I will use our little third room. I've kind of converted it into like a semi-yoga meditation room, and then it's a guest room when guests are in town. And we have a habit that we're trying to make more consistent. And I think especially in this soft girl season I'm shifting into, I'm going to try to make a commitment to add that as well into our weekly routine. But we go and we stretch, we put on the little fake flickering candle lights, warm light and especially flame light at night is extremely beneficial for downshifting into getting prepared for sleep. And that's a huge issue that a lot of humans have nowadays, especially if maybe you're in an apartment or something and you don't really have control over what light bulbs they use. If they're using LEDs or fluorescent lighting in general, or just higher blue light, bright white light, any of that lumen category is going to keep you awake longer. If you're watching TV late at night, keep you awake longer. All the blue light, scrolling on your phone keeps you awake longer. All of those things are negative for our our like physiology of how we're supposed to read that it's nighttime. Because if you think about it, guys, like before we had electricity and computers and all this jazz, we basically were like, oh, the sun went down. We have candles to see, and we're just kind of sharing dinner with our family, maybe talking, maybe reading a book. None of that stuff had blue light. And so their body was able to just easily shift into the sleep state and just just knock out and be good. And then the sun will wake you up in the morning because of the light, the way that the light waves react to our eyes and help with that circadian rhythm. So for us, that's something that's important is in our household, especially at night, we have almost all warm light. And pretty much every single person who's come to our house, especially if they've hung out at night, they're like, your house is so cozy. It's so warm. It's so calming, And I'm like, that is exactly how I designed it. I've changed all the lights to be warm light because of that. There's a purpose to it. Anyways, that was a little tangent that's really important, but I like yoga for that too. If you're somebody who has a hard time winding down, if you can find a yoga class or a yoga video, there's a bajillion of them on YouTube that you could follow. Just set up a little space somewhere in your house where you have ability to put a mat, ideally somewhere that's not carpet, because carpet can be kind of hard to do yoga safely because of how fluffy it is. It'll bend your joints in your hands and stuff, unless you get like a wooden plank to put your mat on. But if you can just set up a little mat and follow like a little 20-minute wind down yoga flow or something like that, or a morning one, those are amazing routines that you can fit in anywhere, anytime, no excuses, that will make profound impacts on your body, your stress, and all of that stuff. And so for me, not only is it beneficial from like the scientific side of getting like my improved flexibility and strength and mental clarity and focus and reduced stress and anxiety because of the way that it reduces our body's cortisol reaction and our parasympathetic nervous system is engaged. And, you get better heart health, better sleep, because of all of that cortisol influencing, stress reducing impacts it has. You also get better hormone balance metabolically and all that kind of stuff. And having more strength from using your body in a calisthenic way really can help so much more, especially like even blood sugar regulation and all that jazz, and just lymphatic drainage as well, because of the way that you're twisting and you're moving in planes of motion again that you don't normally go. And that's super important. And it's also very important to be guided through that, So yoga teachers can be amazing at cueing and helping you get into positions properly and not just overstretching and bending. Like yoga isn't about being who's the bendiest and who can get the deepest into the pose, because a lot of times the poses are individual to you. So if you've ever been like embarrassed that you can't do exactly what everyone else is doing, it takes time, it takes practice. And I was absolutely there with you when I first started that class when I was in junior college. And I was so fascinated with, by the end of the 3-month period, just showing up for class 2 times a week, how flexible I got. I couldn't do the splits all of a sudden. We weren't practicing that, but I could completely, touch my toes and have a flat back and like all these different things and hold poses way longer. It doesn't take very long. You just have to show up and do it. And don't worry about your ego. Some people actually just come to like the class I go to and they'll like lay there in Shavasana like half the class, or they'll go into child's pose for a good chunk, or something that's really hard, they will just go into child's pose or hands and knees and do some cat-cow while everybody else is doing the flow. That's okay. You show up to class to do what feels right for your body and challenge yourself, but don't overdo it. Don't push. Don't try to be the coolest person in the classroom doing the handstands and being extra bendy. None of that stuff is actually what it means to practice yoga. That's a little bit of a sign of your ego coming out when it comes to yoga. And I remember one of my favorite yoga teachers in Portland area talking about that there should not be any ego in yoga, that you should be just coming as you are and experiencing what feels right for your body and honoring what your body needs, not trying to just show up as the coolest yogi possible who can do all these crazy things and is super bendy, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, guys, I hope that you can kind of see the, not only scientific benefits of yoga, but the spiritual benefits, the connecting to yourself, the balance and the harmony that your energy will get physically out of practicing yoga even just one time a week, and there's a lot of spiritual growth that can happen too as you get more conscious of yourself and you have that space to introspect and to have more gratitude for the fact that your body can do those things, at whatever capacity it can do it at. And so for me, as I'm existing in this soft girl season, absolutely every week that I'm home and not traveling, I'm going to be going to my yoga class, maybe 2 times a week. We'll feel it out. Maybe I'll get a little spicy. But at the same time, it is good to experience something that gets you back into your body, whatever the exercise is. Another one that I really do love is bouldering, because you can't not be present while you're hanging onto a wall of rocks without having any sort of backup harness. You know what I mean? Those things are, great ways to focus. So movement can be completely medicinal for you. And so anyways, I just hope that this encourages you to kind of find some movement or try something new that really does make you get back into your body. And even if it's uncomfortable at first, be present with those emotions, work through it and get out of it. And I hope that you can continue to move forward, keep moving forward. I always loved that quote from, I can't remember what the heck was that movie, the little space cartoon one, but the whole motto was keep moving forward. And you just keep moving forward, but also be present, keep moving forward with your practice and exist in your body while you're practicing. So, all right, Rebel, that's it for today's episode. Share this with somebody who, is a big yogi fan and you've not seen them do yoga in a while, or maybe you're somebody who wants to encourage more of your friends and family too. This is a really important conversation and practice to experience, I think, person to person. So celebrate your strength and nourishment, walk with confidence. I'll catch you next week on another episode of Rebel Wellness. What did you think about that episode? If you enjoyed it, I hope that you would come join my community on Instagram at Rebel Wellness Podcast or my coaching page at Kaylee Loren, or both. I would love to see your name pop up on my new follows list. I might say hello if I catch you. And I would also like to invite you to come check out my website, coachkales.com, if you're interested in seeing any more of the educational learning resources I have created for you. I have a whole ton of amazing free downloads that you can dip your toe in the water of what working with me looks like. And if you are really vibing with what I have to say and how I teach it, come explore my courses that are available for purchase. They are all do it yourself. In the near future, I plan to have some awesome group coaching that will be all live, so stay tuned for that. And the best way to know when I'm going to launch those is through my monthly wellness newsletter, which is my hand-curated, not AI-generated, monthly all things health and wellness newsletter that I created to be your new favorite resource for staying up to date with the latest in the health world, self-care resources that I've created, and a bunch of the clean beauty picks that I personally use myself, and a whole lot more, as well as early access and discounts to anything that I create in the future for specifically my newsletter signup. So if you'd like to sign up, head to coachkales.com and add yourself to my mailing list. Last but not least, I would absolutely love it if you would help our podcast grow by simply sharing a rating or review wherever you stream and are listening to me right now, and share it on your social medias or text it to some friends or family members if this episode resonated and was something that you think could help somebody else, because I really would love to help anybody in your circle if I've been helping you. So I absolutely am so grateful that you're here. And if you listened all the way through, you are a real one. So, all right, Rebel, until next episode.